Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ryan and Brian Talk Sports. As always, I'm with Ryan Props, and we're presented by Pickett Sports and Props.cash. Ryan, just to get us started, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I've been better. I've been worse. So that's what you can say about every day, unless it's the best day of your life or the worst day of your life. That's basically how every day goes for me.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it's pretty good. I somehow have energy this morning, so I'm excited. It's a very rare feat these days. So I'm ready to go, man. I got four
Is that
picks.
what it takes for you now to have a good day? Is just like you can get out of bed without,
Pretty
just
much, yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's
As long as I
fair.
don't drag ass, I'm having a pretty good day, but I pretty much drag ass every day. So yeah, we're feeling good today, man.
No, I mean, that's good to know. I mean, I think we have a four-game NBA slate, which could be worse, could be better, just like most things that we just described. But
Here you go.
yeah, I mean, we've been used to some of these slates on the Thursday TNT slates that are two games or three games. So getting a fourth game kind of feels like Christmas came early.
Yeah, I mean, we even had a one game slate not too long ago.
Yeah, that was a great day. There was so much going on that day. I think there was a crappy NFL game and one NBA game, so you couldn't even flip between them.
It was a Mavs Pistons game, I think, and it actually ended up being an incredible
Yes,
game. And
it
we didn't
did.
touch it. We sat here and were like, that game sucks. We're not going to play it. And then I think it went to 17 overtimes, and it was 310 to 312 or something like that.
That was the Hornets game yesterday. I didn't touch it, and I was
Yeah,
like, dude, you could have taken anybody's over, and you probably would have won.
yeah. Knicks
I,
and Bulls was fairly similar. Pretty much every over seemed to hit in that game, and I didn't touch anything there. So
yeah.
that
Instead, the game that everyone went over was the Portland game. All all the big four went over. Nurk, Simons, and Lillard, and I was on Jeremy Grant, who was the only guy that stayed under, and he pissed me off. I like Jeremy Grant as a player, but
oh man,
dude, he had 24 total PRA, and I took over 27 and a half. He recorded 15 or 14 of the 22 in the second quarter. Like in the third and first quarters, he logged a total of one rebound. Like
nice.
in the third and fourth, third, I know the first and third he plays with Dame, so his production goes down a little bit. But I was like, dude, you could have done a little bit better than just one total rebound in those 11 minutes logged. But
He
I
was
I uh I digress because we got a lot to talk about today. So
we
we
do.
will start off with our normal NBA talk. Do you have any plays for the games tonight?
I have two plays as of now. Fully anticipate getting two or three more throughout the day as more props are released. Both of my picks are actually in the same game, Pelicans and Jazz.
Okay, so if you want, we can sandwich because I have one play and then one NFL play, so we can just go you, me, and you.
All right, let's go ahead and let's just get started. All right. My first play of the day is, I mean, I could just be a normal person and take Zion Williamson over. I am not going to do that. I am going to take CJ McCollum over 18 and a half points, which is minus 122. Let me actually double check that because that may have moved to 19 and a half, which I would still take, assuming it's fairly close to plus odds. 1 second. It's minus 125 now. So still playable right there. That's about the max that I would take that juice wise. If it goes any further into the juice, I would kind of just wait around throughout the day and see if it jumps to 19 and a half. And if it does around plus 100 or minus 104, I like it. I perhaps being a little stubborn here. I just don't believe in the regression that we're seeing with CJ. I still believe in his talent. I mean, he was so good just last season in this role too. So like it's not like he was thrusted into the point guard role for the most part last season when he got traded over to New Orleans. So it's not like he's never done this before and had success. But lately this year, obviously it's been pretty down, especially after October's November and December have kind of sucked. And like last game, I took his over 19 and a half and I watched that game. I watched every second of that game. And what I saw was he was fairly passive, but when he had the ball, he got wherever he wanted and did whatever he wanted to do, except make the fucking shots.
Yep, that's
So
fair. I was gonna ask you about that regression because looking at the props side cash app up, he's only hit this line three of his last 10. But before that, I mean, he was hitting it pretty regularly to start the season.
yeah,
Then I guess he just had that little, as you said, regression there.
yeah, I don't fully buy into it. I love this matchup, just like I did last time. Utah allows the most points per game to point guards. And one of like the more interesting things that I found with this play specifically today is prior to this two game series versus The Jazz, they had a 2-game series versus Phoenix. In the first game, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. He shot 6-17. Or hold on, he shot 7 of 16. Sorry, and he had 18 points. He was 1 of 6 from three. The following game, he made his adjustments, and he had the second most points he had all season, which was 29. And that's versus a brutal Suns defense. So like, I feel like he got, he kind of took some lessons from the first game they played, took it into game two, and really had his way. And this is a far easier spot technically on paper to do that. So I mean, I think he can go back and look at the film and just see, like, when he could break anybody down off the dribble. The screens that were being set for him got him open fairly routinely, and he was just getting these 16 to 18 footers that he just simply wasn't knocking down. He went 1 of 3 from the free throw line. Not that he's like a heavy free throw guy, but you can more so anticipate like a 3 out of 4 or a 4 out of 4 from him to sneak a couple extra points. He only took 2 threes, which he averages 6.3 attempts from deep this season. And I think I've hinted at it a couple times. He shot 6 of 17. He just looked a bit off, but what I like to see is his ability to find open shots. And it's only been 48 hours. I doubt he's forgotten what that game was like. I think he'll use what he learned from game one. And we're getting a 1-point discount, albeit there's some juice on it, but we get a nice 1-point discount against the same matchup that he just played. And making the shots obviously always has quite a bit to do with scoring points, but I think he should be fairly encouraged that he could have done whatever he wanted there. So I like this matchup for him. I'm going to go back to him.
I imagine how many minutes do you log last game? He should be
30,
a little.
I think. Yeah, and it was not necessarily a blowout, but it also wasn't really that close. So I think
wasn't that close.
He didn't play the final 6 minutes, I believe, and he played 30 minutes.
You would imagine in a closer matchup, you'd imagine he had to do a little bit more, because sometimes you see guys get a little passive once they are up a little bit. Propside Cash actually did in the chat. They said that they're tailing you and they're putting 18 units on it. I'm pretty sure they said.
Is that right?
If this Maxwell lock of the year hits, Propside Cash will gift 10 subs to the Go Boys Twitch. Right. So there's a lot riding on this, Ryan. You didn't know this, but this is now your legacy play. This is now the biggest play you will ever make in your entire life.
Had I known, I would not have chosen.
You would not have gone with CJ. I was gonna say that the other thing I wanted to bring up is if you don't have Propside Cash, I do think one of the cool features with it is that you can check the median of players scoring. His median scoring is 18, which, if you don't know what median is in school, it's kind of like it's like, the most common denominator there with the average. And despite that his hit rate isn't great, against a poor matchup, asking for one more point of that 18 for his median of the season is not something I'm super concerned about. I do think he has a great matchup, and as you mentioned, the second game of a 2-game series, he could step it up a little bit. Yeah. Especially with Zion didn't see many minutes last game. I think he was in foul trouble. I do think CJ benefits a little bit from Zion being out there. I think Zion, weirdly enough, Zion helps the pace of the Pelicans. He helps us the spacing. It's not a dig at Zion when I say weirdly. It just, for a guy of his caliber or a guy of his play style, the team just seems to be faster and more spread out with him, despite him not really having quote unquote outside range or much in his bag from outside the 18-foot area.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely kind of hit on a lot of the things that I like. One thing I didn't even type in on my notes, which you added in, is he played 30 minutes. He missed the last 6 minutes of the game. The way he was playing, I'm not going to sit here and act like he would have dropped the 6 points that I would have needed to hit. But I mean, obviously, you have a whole lot better chance if he's actually on the floor, which 1.5-point spread tonight. We can always anticipate closer games in the NBA. You truly never know, but I really like this matchup. I think this ends up being a good game. The Jazz at home, they have a lot of depth. They have, oddly enough, they have a lot of talent. They don't have any superstars, but everybody collectively puts together a really good unit. And against, I believe they're still the first best record in the West, the Pelicans. So this is a nice matchup. I think it stays closer today. Again, you never really know in the NBA, but I like this matchup a lot. I think there's many things to like. I think there's a lot of props to like in this game, hence why I actually have two here, but we will discuss that here shortly. But CJ McCollum over 18.5 points is my first prop of the day.
I like that. And is your also there's people prospector Sam is in the chat, and now he said it's not what medium means, but medium for more or less terms is like the midpoint. So when I look at it in terms of props, I that's how I adapt it in my research. He's also asking why we don't have any Phillies World Series gear because his Red Sox did so well this year,
Yeah, exactly.
and we're gonna move on from that. So we're going to my play, which is an obscure under. That is kind of how I have been finding my niche into NBA betting. So I'm actually doing an alt same game parlay, which I've been trying to experiment with, which has its ups and downs with how things work, because I did have Joel Embiid 30 points, 8 rebounds against, was it the Kings, and he went for 31-7. But in the
I had over
same
31.5, so I feel
yeah,
your
in
pain.
the same regard, I will say I haven't lost a bet yet where it was the reason because it did the alt same game, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, yeah.
if I were to play Embiid's PR, I would have also missed and paid a little bit more juice. So until I start seeing some, crazy bad, I would say some crazy bad results from it missing for one reason or the next, I think it's a great way to kind of attack props. And today I am actually going with Brook Lopez. I'm taking his alt 14.5 points on DraftKings, and I'm pairing it with his alt 6.5 rebounds. His points/rebounds props is 18.5. It's juiced to -125 to the under. And this is mostly kind of in the NBA. I think a lot of people, especially if you use props.cash, you can see, hit rates, and you can just by Googling stats, you can see how things, if they're hitting it or not. And then sometimes you see people hit six props in a row, and you're like, oh, I'm going to take the over. And there's that regression spot. So those are kind of plays I like to look at, because Brook Lopez, since Chris Middleton's come back, has actually been rebounding the ball better. And if you look at the matchup, he's gone 7 rebounds or more in like 3 of his last 10, which is a lot for him because he doesn't ever rebound. But the ones he went over were Golden State, the Lakers, and the Hornets. And if you don't know much about the NBA, they're horrible rebounding teams. They just are. They're undersized. He today gets the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are just a much better rebounding team, especially with Adams being back,
Yeah.
Jaren Jackson's being back. They just have so much length. I think this is a spot where Brook Lopez does what he does, and he just is a tall guy that spreads the floor. That's one of his big reasons they use him, especially with Adams being back. I think they're going to try and neutralize Steven Adams, and they don't want him to destroy the offensive glass, and they don't want him to destroy the glass in general. So I think they're going to try to keep Brook on the outside a little bit, try to spread him out. And I just think this is a good spot to, if you want to take, I was actually hoping to get 6.5 rebounds to take the under with, but he actually opened at 4.5 on DraftKings.
Wow.
So I was surprised, but I was kind of hoping I would get like an even -110 on like 6.5. But DraftKings opened under 5.5 at -120, and FanDuel opened the plus minus, but it was plus odds, but it was the line for rebounds is 4.5. He's also not scored 10 points in the last 3 games with Middleton being back. And this is a really small sample size, so I saved it for the end, because you're only looking at a 26-minute sample size or 22-minute sample size. But it's mostly because Middleton just hasn't played. But weirdly enough, in the times Brook Lopez is on the court with Chris Middleton, with Drew Holiday out, he's only averaging 6 rebounds and 6 points per 36 minutes.
So he has no impact, basically.
Yeah, his usage rate is like 9% in that. Like I said, really small sample size, but it's mostly just because, they don't have a lot of time together this year. But that was something I thought was interesting. And Lockdown Bets also said that he likes Brook Lopez blocks today. And that's another thing with Brook Lopez, is that he's actually the front runner for defensive player of the year, which is no joke, but he can test a lot of shots. And I've said this before on the show, and I'll say it again. Guys like Clint Capella will get you 20 rebounds without playing a lick of defense. because they bail out of shots early and they help their rebound numbers. Rebounds is just not a true stat on a defensive end. Brook Lopez could easily win the defensive player of the year with only averaging like 4 or 5 rebounds a game. He contests a lot of shots. He blocks a lot of shots. He contests a lot of shots overall. He gets to people's faces. So if he's out there defending guys like Jaren Jackson on the outside or Steven Adams in the inside looks, if he's contesting those shots, I don't see him necessarily having a huge rebounding game despite the uptick in pace. Because in teams like the Hornets and Lakers, huge uptick in pace. Obviously, they play really fast, but combine that with the poor rebounding, he still only had 7 rebounds in those games. And then one of them he had 6 offensive rebounds. I don't see Steven Adams allowing him to get 6 offensive rebounds in this game.
Probably not.
Yeah, so I'm taking this as plus money. I like the under. I do think Brook Lopez could hit 2 threes. That's probably gonna be a popular play, but I don't care if he hits 2 threes. I just think asking for 15 points and or 7 rebounds in this matchup with Steven Adams back is a little too much for him.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of this isn't something you can really depend on, but you never really know. John Morant goes to the line like 10 to 12 times a game, so and he's going to drive the hoop. And in theory, Brook could be the one trying to contest those shots, leading to foul trouble. Again, not something to depend on, but something that's very possible. 6 offensive rebounds and 7 rebounds total.
He might have had. I think that was a game he had 8 or 9 rebounds. So that was the game where I think he only had 2 defensive rebounds or 3 defensive rebounds. But yeah, there's guys like that in the league though. Like last night, I took Dwight Powell's under. I'm not sure if you saw this, Ryan, but I shared this. I took its under PRA. Do you know that Dwight Powell averages 3.6 rebounds a game, and 2 of them are offensive?
Really?
Like over half his production. Like he averages 9.8 points of rebounds / assist. They like half of that is offensive rebounding. His usage rate is like 0. It's crazy.
Yeah,
on the defensive side, he just boxes out and lets Luka get the boards. And then on offense, he just hopes for offensive rebound, and then he passes out or goes to the line or one way or the other. Because last night his only rebound, he had 1 true rebound. The other one was an offensive rebound where he saved it from about 40 feet, and he just like did one of those like save the ball, and then didn't when he hit like a 30-foot 3. And that was like his only production of the night. Like that was crazy. Like I was watching it. It wasn't really sweaty, but that came in the 4th quarter, and I was like, if I lose because of these ticky-tack like 40-foot rebounds off a Brook 3.
Oh, you took his PRA?
Yeah, he had 7.
So you got an assist off that too?
Yeah, so like 10.5. He only had 7, but yeah, Dwight Powell is crazy because even on missed free throws, if you watch the film, missed free throws, Dwight Powell lines up in the rebound spot, but he cuts out to box out, and Luka is in the guard spot, and he comes in for the rebound. It's. I'm not saying there's like a stat padding thing, but there kind of is. Like remember that year with Russell Westbrook where there was like that big film
where
like
to do that for him.
I used to do it for him all the time. That's what Dwight Powell is. Dwight Powell is the 7-foot rebound clearer for Luka Doncic on a lot of plays. So I think he's a fun guy to fade, and I might look into it more because it was fun last night to watch him just loaf out there, just loaf around.
Loaf around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Explosive 4.2 rebound, 1 assist performance. Incredible. Yeah. And it's funny. I remember somebody in the Goal Boys chat asking me how I felt about him against OKC. And it's just like, in theory, like that, that should be a good spot. I think he
had 2 PRA. He had like 2 points or 2 rebounds, and that was it.
That's it. Yeah. I think his lines were 5.5 and 4.5. And like against OKC, like you kind of sit there and you salivate for a second, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm looking at Dwight Powell.
It's Dwight Powell, DP, man, DP. What a guy. That's what we call him around here. We call him DP.
DP, okay.
He will screw you.
Gonna take a minute to recover after that.
I actually don't think Dwight Powell is a bad basketball player. That's not what I'm saying. It's just his role on that team is, like I said, he's a box out player, and he hopefully creates more possessions for you. Because 2 offensive rebounds a game and playing 18 minutes is kind of great. Like that's actually really good stuff. But that's his only production is passing out off of offensive rebounds or getting putbacks.
Yeah, and for those of you that didn't believe Brian, because I didn't, I had to look it up. He literally averages more offensive rebounds than he does defensive rebounds.
Yeah,
that's a
legitimate stat. It was 2 and 3.6 yesterday. I don't know if it dropped a little bit, but it's
1.8 and 1.7. He averages 1.8 offensive rebounds.
So yeah, so it did drop a little bit with the only one yesterday. It was an off day for only one offensive rebound.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that's funny. I love stats like that because, like I said, because if you think about this, two offensive rebounds a game for a guy that averages 9.8 PRA, you gotta assume a lot of those other PA is putbacks and assists off rebounds.
Yeah, I mean he's either alley-ooping or putbacks, and that's about it.
And then lockdown said, so do you take his unders against teams that don't give up offensive rebounds? That was kind of my angle yesterday, is with Mobley and
Yeah,
um Allen. It was going to be a really tough matchup for him to do anything on the offensive side.
very true. Yeah, no kidding. Goodness, he literally did nothing
He
except
did
for
nothing. And he only played like 13 minutes because the Mavs tend to go small against bigger teams. So that's going to be an interesting spot going forward. Hopefully they don't like over adjust and make it like 6.5, where you just kind of have to be like, ah, man, that's
yeah.
it's a rough. I was actually worried that the blowout would screw me. I thought the blowout could, because it was getting the lead was getting larger. My first thought was, oh, if they throw out Dwight Powell in these meaningless 20 point, like we don't care about who's out there minutes, I'll get so mad because he's a starter, but he's also just a guy that's like, I don't know, put DP out there, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I had for NBA today. Is my Brook Lopez fade.
Okay, good deal. I have one more play. Like you said, I fully anticipate having two or three more. I just freaking love the NBA. It's hard. It's a very frustrating sport to bet on, but I will typically have at least four plays every night. And my next play that I do have as of now, I believe this is your guy's friend of the show, Laurie Markkinen, over
Did you take it over?
21.5. Yeah, I'm going over 21.5 points. It is minus 115 on FanDuel at the
Freaking
top of
hate
the
that
game.
guy.
What's that?
He's my mortal. He's my enemy this year. I do not like
I
Lloyd
thought he was
marketing.
your guy.
But if it makes you feel better, every single time he plays, I try to find a way if I can play it under. And today I couldn't do it. So you're spot on there. I don't take his under often, but I always look at it just to really get my blood going. But yeah, he should do fine today.
Yeah, I like this matchup. He's at home. Last game, he had a really interesting game. He finished with 19. I watched, like I said, I watched the game. I was more so paying attention to CJ at the time, but I watched him tear him up in the first half. I want to say it's 17 in the first half. Then in the second half, he kind of just chilled.
What he does, man. That's what he
Yeah,
does. He
that's
he
true. That is
scores
true.
12 points in the first quarter and then just does nothing.
Yeah,
It
he kind
pisses
of
like
fades away over the course of the game, which is
I
really interesting.
when he has 18 points in the first quarter and ends with 21, don't be surprised. The guy, I don't know.
Don't
It's
be.
not even necessarily a skill thing too. It's they go away from him a little bit. Like I mean, the last time I took his live under, he had 12 in the first quarter and he took two shots in the second and third quarter, and I was like, what is that? He's got it. Like I don't know what it is. Not saying this game is he. I'm not trying to curse you this game, but
Don't do that.
he just gets very very weird with how he plays the game.
Their depth is really interesting. Like I said earlier in the show, it's just like on paper, like it's not that crazy of a team. There's no superstar, but just collectively they play good basketball. And lately they've had Nikhil Walker-Alexander, who I'm a fan of. They've had him even step up in Colin Sexton's role. So the depth is there on this squad. It's a pretty interesting team. But I like Laurie. He tore him up in the first half. He kind of coasted in the second as the bench came in and took care of business. It wasn't necessarily a blowout, but it wasn't really close either. So he didn't really need to do too much in the second half. He also sat the last several minutes of the game and finished with 19. So he would have been off by 3 points. I think he gets the job done. At home, he's just simply a far more efficient player. He averages 57.4% from the field, 47.1 from three, and 82.7 from free throw. Whereas away, he shoots almost 10% worse. He shoots 48.6 from the field. 3-pointers, he shoots over 12% worse. He shoots 35% from three. And then free throws are just about the same. He shoots 0.1% better from free throw away. But he averages 23.2 at home and 21.1 on the road. So I'm naturally just more aggressive targeting him when he plays in Utah. As far as the season's concerned, he's over in 15 of 27. At home, he's over in 8 of 13. So we're getting some really nice percentages there. Thanks, Props.Cash, for that. The Pelicans do have a pretty strong defense, but one area that they lack is against small forwards, where they allow the second most points to that position specifically. So, like I said, I like him a lot more at home. If this was an away game, I would like it, but maybe perhaps just kind of let it go for the morning and come back around to it after more props are released. At home, it was a pretty much a no brainer for me. I went to bed last night thinking if I get that 21 and a half line, I'm going to take it. And sure enough, that's exactly what we got. So yeah, I like two plays in this game: CJ McCollum over 18.5 and Laurie Markkinen over 21.5.
I like that. I mean, I do think some players just they get hype at home. He's one of those. I mean, if you think about the Utah, I mean, is there a crazier place to be than Utah in the US? I don't think so. That place is rowdy. Uh,
That is quite a crazy place to be indeed.
yeah, so he does get up when he's there. But we do have some comments of people asking about Chris Middleton without Drew Holiday.
Once I
I
step,
do
yeah,
like that. I think it's one of those things where do I think Memphis defense is really efficient? Is it really good with Adams and JJJ out there? I do, but it's a catch-22 where the Grizzlies as a team are so good defensively, but they still allow a good amount of points solely because you know they just play so fast. Like that's a big
yeah,
thing where like you don't get the advantage of bad defensive efficiency and bad defense, but you do get the pace aspect. And I do think Middleton's looked good when he's been out there. And someone asked about Giannis's assist prop at 5.5. I did give that a look as well. I think Giannis could have a good time timing, especially as we mentioned, Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams. I wouldn't be surprised if they give Giannis fits, but Giannis is still Giannis, so he should still get his on the scoring output. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's passing out to the sharpshooters of, Grayson Allen and Brooke Lopez on the outside. But mostly that could affect Middleton's production. I make the joke about Brooke Lopez. I do think Lopez has a good look from threes, but I think his points overall is just too high because even if he gets two or three threes, I don't think he's getting much inside scoring. But to answer the questions about Giannis's assist or Middleton's points, I do think they both would work out. I think they're both good props. I think Giannis's assist is juiced to -130, which is a little sucky if you're playing that, but that means the world in these kind of props with assist and rebounds is 1 or 0.5 means everything because it's not like a point where like, oh, maybe he gets a free throw. It's you need a very specific thing to happen there. Uh, yeah, someone said that there is a Memphis plays a high pace. Yeah, so there's a lot of points. They do play good defense. That's my other thing. They're a weird subsection where they allow a lot of points, but their defensive efficiency and ratings are actually quite high because they
yeah.
play good team defense. They just kind of run around. They're like me when I play 2K. I always go as fast as possible. If I'm not shooting like with double digits on the shot clock, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I'm looking at like the passing stats of last game for Milwaukee. Javon Carter played a solid amount of minutes, so he kind of steps into that Drew role. George Hill even got 19 minutes. So, but Giannis, he played 30 minutes, which is a little under his season total. He had 8 potential assists and 5 converted. But I think the way that Memphis guards him in the paint tonight is very aggressive. Giannis also took 26 shots in 30 minutes. So I think we can see some form of, I guess, regression in shot attempts and more passes out in the post because I think the paint defense is going to be quite physical tonight for him. So I think he's got a tough job. Whereas, which leads me to like his assist numbers. As far as Chris Middleton matchup wise, it's a nice spot. He got 28.9 minutes last game, so I mean he's slowly creeping up. We're finally, as with that, so are his Giannis.
Yeah, whenever you say Giannis or Jokic or Jokic,
Jokic.
Jokic, I don't know what it is. It just makes me want to punch you through the screen. And I know it wouldn't do anything but hurt my laptop, and it still is
Yeah,
something that goes in my head.
Giannis. Yeah.
Giannis, yeah, Giannis arthritis.
I like that. But I like Middleton points. That one was very heavily considered this morning. His volume still kind of spooks me a little bit. He took 13 shots in 29 minutes. That's not bad, but it's not a lot. And he had to be pretty efficient to drop 20 last game. I don't really foresee them bumping him up to that 34-minute mark that'll probably play at for most of the season. So I was a little hesitant. I didn't officially lock it in, but it's definitely a lean over there for Chris Middleton, John's teammate, Joe Kick, and John.
Giannis. I will say when you spell it like G-E-E, it makes me think of it's like a motion where it's like Giannis. Like I don't know. Like I think there's a sitcom there. Like if there's an NBA sitcom,
There you
like
go.
where it's like who else but Giannis? Like yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, Tone Stamp has a really good point. I did something that was kind of devious there in the
I
comment,
saw it's all right.
but I don't know. I didn't know what else to do. So Gold Boys has one too, and if I knew it
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I would have been fair and
My
just said
my
that
code
one.
is your boy Skinny Peen. That's my
Is that right?
yeah. I tried to get it. I was rejected.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
no, I
my
do.
bad. I don't really know. I don't know the Gold Boys one off the top of my head, and I don't know yours. And why not go ahead and steal it? So sorry. I'll let you get the next one.
So I'll say this. This is a perfect segue for NFL, right?
I
Utter
think
cha- utter. I always like to have utter chaos in the show and then say it's a segue to the next segment. So with that being said, let's talk about the Thursday night football game. Uh, I know you don't have any plays in this game because you are afraid of obscure NFL lines, but do you have any thoughts of the San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks? A
um I,
heavyweight match of teams
yeah.
that we thought might be an irrelevant game by now.
Yeah.
Not for the Niners, but for the Seahawks side of things. They've played up to standards despite kind of being like recently.
Yeah, I don't know too much of what to think of this game. I believe Purdy is pretty
He's gonna
questionable.
play. Mr. Irrelevant is the most relevant player in the NFL right now. He is a dog. I love him. I had to pick him up in my fantasy playoffs because Kyler is now dead. I am a big Purdy fan.
So
If
so he is playing, or you're anticipating him playing?
he's listed as probable.
Oh, is he really? Okay, gotcha.
So
So
Tone Sampson said this. He said Purdy or Mike White for fantasy. I have to do the same thing. I have to pick up one of the two, and it's a tough one because like I said, this is my big money league. I need a quarterback because Kyler's dead. I like Mike White better in terms of matchup against the Lions, but Purdy plays tonight, which screws everything up because if Mike White's ribs aren't ready to go, and
yes.
he doesn't play, then I'm stuck with like I don't know Baker Mayfield or some like one of these weird names I don't even want to talk about.
Desmond Ritter. Go get Desmond Ritter.
Desmond Ritter, I could get Desmond Ritter and he can give me a solid 3 points. Ryan, no. So I do think I like Mike White better if you're in a pinch in fantasy football because of the matchup. I mean, the Lions they allow Kirk Cousins to score like 40 fantasy points to 30 fantasy points, but
Yeah.
it's all about those ribs. But I don't know, Mike White. If there was the top two quarterbacks in the NFL right now are really Purdy and White. That's the two. That's the
I think
two
so.
at the top of the list.
Yep.
Uh, but I
It's
will
not up for
say
debate either.
we'll go with that segue. We'll talk about the Niners Seahawks game. Do you have any initial thoughts on this game? The over under is 43.5. The spread is the Niners -3 even, so you get a chance for a push either way.
Yeah, I mean, blown away by the spread, frankly. It kind of feels trap like. San Fran seems like such an easy pick for me. I'd actually be curious to what like the handle is. I'm gonna have to hop on action while you're talking about your prop. I want to find out what the handle is. San Fran seems so obvious at -3. I know they're away, but I don't know. This one's odd. General leans. I did kind of like Geno under passing yards, but it's dropped quite significantly. I think it was like it opened at 240 something. It's now in the 230s. So that one kind of spooks me a little bit. And if Purdy plays, which it sounds like he will, Brandon Ayuk receiving yards will definitely be a look of mine, or at least something I dig into. As of where we stand now, I don't have any locked in props, but I'll beautifully segue that
So
to you because I believe you do.
so you don't so you okay, so that makes me feel better. So you're not avoiding the game totally. You just don't have anything at the moment.
No,
But
I
you
couldn't.
could.
I couldn't fall in love with anything by the time we started this show as well, is how I'll describe it.
That's fair. No, I agree. Well, in the term in the classic I would say Brian versus the books fashion, I have a really obscure prop in this game. It's not a defensive prop or anything like weird like that, but I am taking Kyle Juszczyk over 7.5 receiving yards. That that
Let's hear it.
is that is my that is my play. I don't use the word anything too crazy, but this is something I actually really like because I was actually giving Geno's under a look as well. And then the more I was looking at props, the more I just fell in love with this one. And if you look at the numbers, they're not super pretty since CMC's been there. So the last 3 weeks, Juszczyk has only hit this once, which is kind of, I would say, a scary thing if you are a hit rate guy. But if you look at it this way, the last 3 weeks, despite CMC being there, his snap share has increased, and he's seen 2 or 3 targets every single week in the last 3 weeks.
That's
So
pretty good.
last 3 weeks, he had 2 targets for 2 yards, caught both of them. Week after that, 3 targets for 3 catches, 12 yards, which was the win, and then 2 targets for 7 yards, which would have been a hook, would have been right at 7. But my
Brutal.
thing is that before this started, this recent 3 yards a catch started. I mean, he was at like this was his
Kind of
before.
explosive.
Yeah, this is him before. 24 yards in the one game, 35, 27, 33, and 34. And in all of those weeks, his longest catch, he had 10 or more yards on the catch. So in this matchup, he gets the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks allow the third most receiving yards to opposing running backs, 50 a game, and the sixth most reception of 5.7 receptions a game. So yes, Christian McCaffrey is the guy that benefits. Obviously, he's Christian McCaffrey, but they're running so many two-back sets, especially with Purdy being out there, that Juszczyk is just seeing so many snaps that you're telling me he can't sneak away and break off an 8-yard catch? Because I certainly think he can. I also certainly think that with his increased snap share, it is certainly possible that these two he has 100% catch rate so far with Purdy. He's averaging 2.5 targets per game with Purdy. We just need one of them to get there.
Yeah.
So he's 50-50 on this line with Purdy in. The one miss was a 7-yard game. We just need the extra yard. But with this defense they're facing, they struggle in the linebacking game to cover the running backs. But you can't tell me that they're not going to try to extra make sure they account for Christian McCaffrey. That if they run a two-back set, I could just picture in my head that McCaffrey goes right. They did that leak out route with Kyle Juszczyk. Weak linebacking core, he could break one for 10 plus yards. As much as this one is, I would say, interesting or weird, it's going to be really fun to root for, and I really think it's a good look. I think it's a fantastic look in this matchup.
This is a 5-unit play for you. Is that right?
It is a 1 unit play, and my last thing I'll say is in his 5-year career, he's always averaged 10 yards per grab. So I am not going to get too scared off of the 3 yards a catch the last few weeks. I think this is a great look. He's seeing 2 targets a game. And lastly, I will say, FanDuel opened this late. FanDuel opens props later. FanDuel
Yeah.
opened this at 9.5. So
It's
not to
still
have my
sitting there as well.
not to what?
It's still there as well.
No, yeah. So my thing is that not to have a tinfoil hat, but I think FanDuel was a pretty sharp book, and the fact that they opened this at around 10 is telling because I do think his involvement will be there. He's also closed. His receiving prop is closed at 10.5 in 6 of his last 8 games. And I do think this is a great spot, especially if you can get it under 10. I wouldn't play the 9.5 of FanDuel. I think because 7.5 is so widely available, I think it's a good look. It could hit in a play, and that's the best kind of prop
Yeah.
because even if there's a second left in the game, you never know. Like he plays too many snaps.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm reading the chat. Yeah, juice. The juice is loose, but in a responsible manner. Kyle Juszczyk, Kyle Juszczyk, whatever you want to call him. I call him Kyle Juszczyk.
Well, it
Because
depends on his production tonight.
he's got a massive Juszczyk. But
Damn. 65. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, what are you gonna say?
65% of the money, according to Action Network, is on the Seahawks.
So the sharp money is on the Hawks.
"Quote unquote" sharp money. Interesting.
Yeah. Kyle
Okay.
Juszczyk, yeah. But that's my favorite play. I love it. It's gonna be really annoying when it hits in the first quarter and you have to watch the game with no action on it. But
It's true, but
but
that's when you
other than
just get
that,
drunk and enjoy.
yeah, no, I do think it's a good look. I might look to add a half unit play on something else, but like I said, it's just such a weird combo they have, and for a team that struggles against running backs out of the backfield, I imagine they're gonna really double up and make sure they limit McCaffrey's production, which gives you Dick a huge advantage to leak out.
Yeah, and somebody bust on a stack. He gave some incredible analysis here in the chat. 7.5 is less than
It
9.5.
is.
Is a fact.
It's a
Last I checked.
fact. I broke my calculator out during while you were talking. It is true. So if he does end at 8 or 9, you would win. If you have 7.5, you'd lose if you had the 9.5, unless you try to middle it and play God and do an 8 exacto. The
Okay.
only thing that works with is Bankero's 20 points against the Hawks. Powell only scores 20 against the Hawks. I tweeted that yesterday, and people were talking about from a gambling perspective how you had to buy the extra point for him. I wasn't even talking from a gambling perspective. It is just a wild thing to score exactly 20 in three straight matchups against the same team. He hit the
Yeah.
3 late in the fourth, and I think he knew it, and he just stopped. He didn't take another shot. He knew
Yep.
he hit his
Oh
20,
no,
and
he
he was
took
like, I'm
one. He
out.
took one more. He took the lamest, weirdest. He took the weirdest little attempted layup that I've ever seen, but no, it didn't work out. Yeah, I had his over 20.5. JD's texting me. Oh no.
He's saying that your books are cursing at him.
Does it say
The blocks.
the blocks?
What does the block say? Is it the
It's
F word?
it's no,
That's
it
what we're
says
all wondering.
Jack. This is my son's my newborn's nursery.
You
They're
name your
well,
Jack the you name your son the F word? That's crazy.
I thought about it. I debated it. No, it does not say fuck. It says Jack.
No, yeah. Tony Sip asked me to explain my propaganda. He's 5. Kyle Juszczyk gets 8 or more yards. Book it. I don't like I said. I don't usually get excited for a prop, but this one is one I got really excited about. I do
I
think it's a
actually
great
love
look.
this so much. I'm definitely going to get on this with you because every play is just electric when you have a 7.5 prop. So I
Especially
will.
for a guy that until recently was going for 20 plus a game. I mean,
I
he
think
was
five
never.
straight at 24 plus.
I mean, and despite having Chris McCaffrey, they are short in the running back room. I mean, for the first time, they've lost multiple running backs. Well, not the first time. They always do that.
Yeah,
Somehow they don't. Some of the Niners never use all their running backs a lot, but they all get hurt. Like they manage their load so well, and they still all get hurt. I don't understand it. But yeah, like I said, McCaffrey's in, but his snap snap count has increased with McCaffrey. So it's a fun spot to be because he's on the field. You can't get 8 yards on the bench, so he's out there.
that's a fact. That is as well as 7.5 being less than 9.5. You can't get yards if you're on the bench. I mean, really, just we're dropping facts here. I don't know how else to say it.
And then you'll see me explode on Twitter when he gets 8 rushing yards and no passing yards. He'll get the random run of this like he gets a run every like full moon.
Yeah, he's got
Every
five
full
all year,
moon.
I think.
Yeah. And if you don't know, Kyle Juszczyk has a special place in my heart. He was my first legal sports bet. He was in a parlay I did that cashed big and got me hooked. So he held a special place in my plus 27,000 odd parlay. That was
Nice.
still the biggest odds I think I've ever hit in my life. It was plus
Really
27,000. It was
nice.
five. It was like $7 to win 1,800 or whatever, or 5 to win 1,400. So yeah. Oh, and Tone Sim said he was my first. He was. It was in the Super Bowl with um the Chiefs, and Juszczyk scored a touchdown. And I took him and Patrick Mahomes to each score a touchdown, and Juszczyk's odds were crazy high to score in the Super Bowl as a fullback. So it was pretty fun.
That was pretty good. He has
Yeah.
plus 700 to score tonight. I had to peek at that. I've taken him to score every once in a while. What does he have? Two
I'll squad
touchdowns.
ride with you with like a free bet.
I'm down. I have two $25 free bets.
All right,
I want to
we'll do
check
that
out in the
later.
chat.
So this is a good segue into the Saturday games, where I know you.
Is it?
I, yeah, Kyle Juszczyk reminds me of Saturdays because he makes me so happy. So I know you have a problem. You have a problem with Saturday game, I believe, don't
I
you?
do, I do, and just what a joyous week this will be. I mean, I do love college football, but I think I'm a little bit more excited about Saturday having 3 games rather than 120 college games.
See,
Uh,
speaking of Jeff Saturday, see, look at the segue in the chat. I said Saturday, and now Jeff Saturday plays on Saturday. Colts money line. This is like the Barstool where they do the signs.
the
Yeah,
sign, yes,
this
the
is the
signs with
signs, but
Brian.
a cheaper version of it where we just rip off them and we get sued for it. But we need a
Dude,
better name than the
Jersey Jerry.
signs.
Go ahead.
We need a better name, like not a better name, like a worse name, but something similar that just is a complete rip off.
I feel like Jersey Jerry is going to make a video of the Colts somehow on Saturdays.
It
One of the
makes sense.
Yeah. So there's 3 games. We have Colts Vikings, which should be a pretty fun one. Vikings games are just electric because they're so bad on defense and so good on offense. Then we have Ravens Browns in Cleveland. We could see a little snow there, but not much. And then Dolphins Bills. Dolphins players are very excited to go play in the 25-degree weather. I'm sure.
I think
And
that plays so big into the 7 spread. I think on a neutral, not even in Miami, on a neutral field in a dome. I think this is
weather.
5 point spread. But I think they're getting the full 7 because of the weather.
I could see that. Yeah. Sam asked if I liked this cheat sheet. That was a good look. I saw that either this morning or yesterday morning. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Sam pinned a cheat sheet for NFL. And
I
the
did
NFL
see that.
chat.
I actually printed it out so I can throw it away in the actual garbage. I needed to make a statement.
All right. All right. Let's
So
get here.
your
So,
play about Jeff Saturday, yes, go.
so I have a play, but even before I get to that, they hung the most incredible line, and it's so tempting. I know it was pretty much a no-show last week. Again, I didn't play this, but Jalen Waddle's at like
He's at
56 and a half
55 and a
yards.
half. Yeah, I
Holy
saw
shit,
that.
is that hard to walk away from? I did, as of now, walk away from that, but
I did see
man,
that 56 and a half on
brutal.
DraftKings.
It is brutal to walk away from. But anyway, nonetheless, I walked away and I'm going to play Donovan People-Jones instead. Over 49 and a half receiving yards, minus 115 on DraftKings. Donovan Peoples-Jones he's 23 years old out of Michigan. I would think you're more average NFL fan, probably had never really heard of him coming into the season, but he's put together like a hell of a year. Last week, he emerged as a really big threat for Deshaun Watson. He threw to him 12 times. Donovan People-Jones caught 8 of those. He now has 15 targets and 11 receptions in the 2 games that Deshaun has started. Cooper's been battling a hip injury. He didn't practice yesterday, but I don't really have any concerns. I think he will play. And his line is actually quite tempting too at 58 and a half. But, it does seem like this hip is bothering him a little bit more. So Peoples-Jones has really stepped up. He actually, since week 8, has outsnapped Cooper in every single game. Now, this isn't like a significant margin. It's not to say, I'm the main thing I'm getting at is just he's on the field so much. He actually played 100% of the snaps, which he's the last week, which he's the only wide receiver for the Browns to do that in any game this year. So for the year, he's hit this in 9 of 13, and he's just steadily seen this climb all year. And this is probably the highest one he has, which, in a sense is a buy high that I don't typically go for, but he's just been so consistent. He's on the field the whole game. Watson's, I would like to say he's a more talented arm than Brissett, perhaps just a more rusty one, but he's still Deshaun Watson. I think he'll kind of start to break through here fairly soon. And 3 weeks into, coming back in a pretty good matchup versus Baltimore, I think this could be a nice spot despite a little bit of snow. He's played Baltimore once this season with Brissett under center. He had 71 yards. We cleared with ease. One stat that I found really interesting is Deshaun Watson has attempted 5 deep passes since coming back. 4 of them went to Donovan. So,
And he had 8 catches last week. So what you could say is that, Deshaun Watson gives him touches. It's only a problem if it's the other way around. Like Deshaun Watson can give him touches, but other way around, it's a big deal. But yeah,
I was trying to avoid sneaking those in, but
I got one cheap one in, and then I'm out. But
okay.
no, I did. I actually looked at his catches at 3.5 as well.
Tempting.
only because I've too many times I've taken somebody's yards and they have 9 catches for -3 yards, and I don't understand how it works out. But 3.5 and 49.5 are both great lines, especially for a guy that's such a big deep threat, especially in this offense, especially in this matchup, because the Ravens haven't been great in terms of their passing defense. They've been,
Fourth most to wide receivers yards. That is.
yeah, it's almost like I don't know. I feel like they're fake good in some way. Like not a team, but I some of their metrics don't make sense. But especially if you just watch them play, their coverages get blown. They're not really great in staying in their too deep. They're not really super, you know, fun. I don't know. They don't really match up in terms of the metrics or the eye test for me. So I do like the fact he can find a seam and maybe break one.
Yeah, I was sitting. I was basically typing up Cooper's prop, and then I stopped for a second. I was like, hold on, there's a better look for a
Oh, so I'm taking
this
Cooper.
guy.
Whenever you go off your first read, they're going Cooper for everyone ladder Cooper for
I
200
should
yards.
I
Look
shouldn't
out.
have even said that because that is so true. I can't believe I truly did that. Yes, I was excited for Cooper when I saw his line. Then I remembered the hip injury, and I kept just bouncing off all these things, and it's like, well, hold on. Donovan Peoples Jones has been killing it. So I went over to him and I found 10 times more stats that are
DPS baby. He's
intriguing.
like Dwight Powell, DP but with an S. He's DPS.
There you go.
Donovan Peoples Jones. I do think this is a spot where I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about because I haven't locked anything in yet. But what are your thoughts on Mark Andrews in this game?
Very
The
tempting. That one was debated.
51.5. But I did read an article where they're talking about how more than ever that they're seeing doubles and teams are just selling out the stop Mark Andrews. So I bought in that a little bit. As talented as he is, it does make sense that people will just throw triple teams at him because who else is going to beat you? I mean, you have Huntley
Marcus
throwing
Brown.
it, no trash on him, but Huntley's throwing it and he's got to fit balls. Yeah, well, okay, that's going to be. I didn't mean to say it like that, but he's got to put the football in tough spaces,
There you go.
and
Nice.
yeah, there you go. And the the Ravens just don't have that receiving core. Like, they don't even have like they used to have a bit. They never really had a strong receiving core, but they used to have a guy or two that could like step up when need to. They don't even have that right now.
All right, are you dissing 39-year-old Deshaun Jackson right now?
He did come up clutch in that one game with that one bomb from Lamar Jackson. That was a Jaguars game. He had that like 60-yard catch. And he could have scored, but he does that thing where he doesn't like to score. So he stops and then he like dances backwards and everyone just sit there going, run forward, man. You already burdened the safety. Why are you coming back to the contact area?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. At
Well,
least he didn't drop the ball prior to entering the end zone.
I did give Mark Andrews a look solely
Yeah.
because this is one of those fake stats. I always talk about fake stats on the show. Is that in terms of production against tight ends, the Browns are middle of the pack. It's like, oh, they only allow 43 yards to tight ends. Look at some of the tight ends they faced. I mean, Mitchell Wilcox last week at 10 yards. That counts for them. And, like that counts for that stat that they held Mitchell Wilcox to 10 yards. So congrats to the Browns. You guys did it. But
You
on
did.
this season, I mean, look at some of these lines. Brevin Jordan had 46 yards because that makes sense. Mike Gesicki had 31, and for him, that's like 1,000 this season.
Yeah.
I mean, 31 yards for him is a 100-yard game as far as I'm concerned. If you scale it down, I have a conversion chart for Bears passing offensive stats and Mike Gesicki receiving stats. So 31 converts to 107 yards, which is a massive game. Dawson Knox had 70 yards. His conversion chart
Oh
has him
wow.
that's a 98-yard game for him with how little he's been involved. So Dawson Knox had a great game. Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith each had 60 yards against this Browns team, which is weird. I don't know. I forgot Johnny Smith actually was involved at one point this season.
It's a
And
fact.
then Conklin had 40, and even as Ian Thomas had 53. And Ian Thomas, haven't heard his name in 4 weeks. So I do think it's one of those things where they're not necessarily great against tight ends. They just have these outlier games of teams that don't really use a tight end like
Yeah.
Mitchell Wilcox that gets you 10 yards.
Mitchell Wilcox, Sam with an absolute gem of a piece of information. Sam's girlfriend's cousin is dating Mike Gesicki's best friend. That
So
is
have you ever seen
legendary stuff.
Spaceballs?
Yeah,
Obviously,
of course.
yeah, where it's like I'm your cousin's sister's roommate's college roommate, brother, friend, whatever. It's like, so what does that make us? Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
That's what Sam just said there.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much. Oh, man. Yeah, Toby just said, "Wow, Sam, that's good to know." It
so
really
whatever
is.
that is, good for you. I mean, I have a cousin that taught my uncle taught Tina Fey, so I guess me and Tina Fey are closely related at
There's a
that
hell of a
point.
relationship there.
Yeah. So I did give it a look. It's one where the only reason I didn't fire is I wouldn't be surprised if FanDuel and other books open it below 50. I wouldn't be surprised if we can get like really a buy low spot, but 51 and
Yeah,
a half is definitely tempting. And my other thing is that MGM will also have 51 and a half. So if FanDuel ends up opening it to like 56 and a half, I can guarantee you there'd be like a solid 2 hours before MGM catches on that they're off on the market and then you can get it there. So I'm waiting on it solely because despite how bad he's been in separation and the double teams, I do think Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews and he's very talented that he could still have a good day. Or if I get a 4.5 reception line, I think they're gonna try to get him involved some way or the other.
yeah. Coming off a 6 target game, which is actually one of the lesser amounts that he's seen this season than we talked about last week. That Huntley's he's a big Andrews guy. So yeah, it's nice. It's a pretty nice spot. It's very very tempting. But the receivers on the outside, like you touched on, does make this a little spooky. I mean, they're probably worse than ever. No offense to Devin Duvernay, Quan's boy, and Demarcus Robinson, Deshaun Jackson, but that's a pretty awful receiving core. So it would be fairly easy to key in on Mark Andrews. I guess the one benefit, which is kind of interesting, clearly Pittsburgh wanted to not let Andrews affect the game, but then in came Dobbins out of the blue and just crushed him. So I guess now you have to prepare for the run game. Despite Lamar not really playing, their run game was incredible last week. So hopefully that could open up things for Mark Andrews. 50 yards is really not much. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a tempting spot.
No,
But
I agree.
I do have one more play for
Please,
Sunday actually.
please share, yeah, because we have all weekend of football.
Yeah, this is going to be a great weekend. So coming off the bye week and against my Eagles, I like Justin Fields over 69.5 rushing yards.
Nice.
Unless it's set at like 100.5, I think Fields is just worth a look at this point. I think he rushes for, I think he has a 70-yard run in like every game this season. It feels like it's not a real set, by the way. But his rush line set at 10.5, which I think is quite interesting and something I really like to look at when I'm playing rushing yards is what the books anticipate their rushing attempts to be like. He averages 7.1 yards per carry. He's hit this in 4 straight and 6 out of 7. And I'm not too big of a trend guy, but those are fairly significant ones. He had a bye week to rest up his, I believe, left shoulder injury. Game script could come into play here. An epic game script. The Eagles against the Giants, they kind of just took care of business. I can't guarantee they'll do that again, but the Eagles are just really focused. They don't really play with their food. They just kind of go out, take care of business, and go up big quickly in a lot of the games this season. I think there's a good chance they do this again, which will lead to Fields dropping back a lot more, which will lead to him resorting to use his legs quite frequently. So I peeked into Eagles' success versus quarterbacks in this realm, if you will. It's been really, really low volume. Nobody's really tried it that much. But what I have noticed is the yards per carry are quite significant. So Daniel Jones, oddly enough, he only had 4 carries for 26 yards last game, but that's 6.5 yards per carry. Ryan Tannehill the week prior had 3
Oh,
carries for
yeah.
34 yards,
Yeah,
which is 11 yards per carry.
Michael Vick. I remember watching that game, getting pissed off at Ryan Tannehill.
That's right. That's right. Davis Mills 3 for 18, so 6 yards per carry. Kenny Pickett, he used his legs quite a bit. He had 7 for 37, 5.3 yards per carry. Kyler Murray had 4 carries for 42 yards, 10.5 yards per carry. Most significant one, Matt Ryan had 1 yard on 1 carry. So, he exploded with his legs that day. So the volume's low, which, I guess you could kind of point to the Eagles decent at preventing this, but I think Fields is just going to run no matter what. So, yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, he is questionable with the illness, but I mean, if he doesn't play, then he just doesn't play. That's fine. But I was very intrigued by the yards per carry that the Eagles let up. I think he's going to get his 10-ish rushes, if not more than that. So I like the spot. I mean, he's just so explosive right now. He could be dropping back quite frequently on this one, thanks to our good friend of the show, Game Script. So yeah, Justin Fields over 69.5 rushing yards.
Also,
My
to
second NFL play this week.
to add on to that, he didn't practice yesterday with an illness, but if I remember the report said that they're hoping to get him back on the field Friday, and he's not dealing with anything significant. It's just gonna be one of those things to make sure he's good to go. I don't like I said, if he doesn't play, he doesn't play, but I don't think he'd play unless he is really feeling up for it. So I wouldn't be super worried about that. And to add on to it as
Yeah,
well, the Eagles
it
defense
is notable though.
does have that dog in them. They are very good, but they do play about they hover just under 30% in man-to-man looks. I think it's about 28% right now. And if you follow me, you know that I like to target quarterback rushing totals against high man-to-man coverages. Eagles don't run a lot man to man. They're not like, I mean, they do, but they're not like top 5 in the league. They don't, sell out for the man to man. But those man coverage looks are like barbecue chicken for guys with that can use their legs like Fields can do. So I imagine they have a
Yeah,
spy on him. I imagine they're gonna try to limit him, but I think everyone's trying to limit him on the ground every single week, and as you can tell, it's not really working. So I do think this is a good look
yeah,
for him, especially with how many dropbacks you could see.
yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, obviously, the Eagles, like Daniel Jones, typically has more than four carries. So, like, they're doing something right in preventing this. But I just don't think the Bears can do much unless he runs. So I think he's just going to run. He's going to run. So and he's very explosive, and he rips off long runs like it's nothing. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
But those are my 4 plays for the. I have 2 tonight, and then one for Saturday, one for Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the other look I was looking at is in this game, I kind of want to get more stock in Miles Sanders,
I like
69 and a
it.
half rushing yards.
Yeah,
I honestly think 69 when I saw it. I said nice, but second I was thinking that's kind of higher than you're used to seeing. But then if you sit back and look at it, I don't know if it's high enough. I mean, he's not like he's over that 9 of the 13 games, but they're not close. He's not scraping by with like 70 yards. He's having a very
he's
good
exploding.
productive season. Yeah, he's doing extremely well. So even though it seems a little higher than we used to, I mean, this is a guy that has been finally coming into his own. I mean, he's already 1,000-yard rusher, which is crazy to
Yeah,
say that the Philadelphia Eagles have 1,000-yard rusher at this point in the year. I mean, he had 144 last week. 3 weeks ago, he had 143, which is weird that he stays that consistent. But in between that sandwich, there was a Titans game who we only had 24. But if you watch that game, despite the fact that the Eagles were up so big, the Titans are just that team in terms of the running back position. They're so good at stopping the run.
they're phenomenal. Yeah,
The Bears are not on that spectrum. They are just not a great football team overall. Sorry, Quan. They have troubles in the trenches, and the Eagles' offensive line has been so good in their run blocking schemes and execution that if Miles Sanders, his over under is 16 and a half for carries. If you give me 15 carries and I need 70 yards against this team, I feel pretty confident I can get 70 yards with Miles Sanders on that volume.
yeah. I very heavily consider that one myself. As very possibly an ad for me. I do want to see, like you mentioned a few times, I do want to see what FanDuel does, but sometimes that kind of screws you over because
It's
they
a
might
catch
have like
22
a
because and
70.
that it really is interesting, and it really has been a problem all year that you want to get plays in early, but having access to just one out of my 5 books on these lines is just such a weird guessing game
Yeah.
that it is interesting. But yeah, Miles Sanders is a great spot. I do think that despite we talk about guys that lower the lines by having dud games. He's had some dud games, keeps his average a little lower. I think this line is just favorable for the matchup, especially in a -10 spread. Because the only way we go away from, I mean, the Eagles would go away from him is that if it was 48-0, and there's just no reason to have anybody out there. But he's a guy that should see, like I said, 15 or more carries.
Yep. 100% agree. Very big fan of that.
Yeah, so that is one I might fire on. I'm also a Miles Sanders truther. I've been a Miles Sanders truther for the last few years. I do believe the Eagles' success is way better when we get him involved. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's a matter of the Eagles win more comfortably, thus getting Sanders involved. I think we win more comfortably when we get him involved from the jump, and I think we finally have figured that out. Like the last two big wins, except for the Titans game, which doesn't really count because we just decided the Titans can stop their run, so we're not even going to attempt to do anything, and we just burned them with AJ Brown over the top 16 times in a row.
That was fun to watch.
Yeah, so I do think this is a good spot for Sanders.
Yep,
that is
very much
the other spot I had circled. So those are the two spots I circled. I don't really, it's hard because a lot of the attempt props aren't fully set. So when I look at quarterback props or I look at other props, I like to look at attempts as well, and they're just not a market for them yet. So I haven't locked anything for the weekend, but those are definitely two spots I was looking at.
Yep, big fan.
And is there anything else you have to add, or can we segue into the Pickett popular plays?
Just yet again, just a beautul
When
segue.
I think of Pickett, I think of Miles Sanders. But yeah, if you're not aware, we always do this segment. Actually, if you have the Pickett app, they just came out with the Pickett Wrapped. As I was doing the show, they made the announcement.
Really? Nice.
They are doing a Spotify version of the Pickett Wrap. We can actually check, players you win the most on, players you lose the most on. It's a fun little segment. I somehow am in the top 0.01% on losses and wins for DeAndre Ayton. More wins than losses, obviously, but I guess the volume I bet on DeAndre Ayton, I have somehow in the category for both. So we're gonna move on to pick a popular plays. To an extent, did we lose Ryan or did we lose? Oh, Ryan's there. Okay, you were just so still. You were so still for so long. I thought we lost you. Holy hell. So we're gonna go to the pick a popular plays. I just want to plug that because I was actually, if you're not aware, I do work with Pickett, and I thought they were gonna wait for me to do this announcement. They said they'd wait until noon to make the announcement so I can help be a part of it, but I guess they said he's not really that important to our operation, so I am left out in the dust. But we will do our Pickett popular plays. First and foremost, surprisingly, it is Christian McCaffrey. I don't know who that is, but I guess he's the backup running back for
something like that.
For the
backup to Kyle Juszczyk.
The backup running back for Kyle Juszczyk, Christian McCaffrey. He's been on a lot, way more than Juszczyk. I don't even see Juszczyk on this list actually. So I guess people are seeing things differently. I don't know, but this guy McCaffrey, people are taking his touchdown prop at the most bet, and until we keep doing this segment, it's always going to be touchdowns first. That is just what people like to bet on. But the second most is his actual receiving yards. And I like that because as someone that has bet on Kyle Juszczyk's receiving yards, the same angle applies here. The Seahawks struggle against running backs out of the backfield. I think it's a spot where you have Purdy, despite being the best quarterback in the league, he's still, Mr. Irrelevant. He's still getting his feet wet. He's going to use those checkdowns. I actually gave George Kittle a look here, but George Kittle is basically left tackle now. So I wasn't really sure about that. So I think it opens the game up for the elite playmakers on this team. So when you think of the Niners, you think of elite playmakers of Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk. So I think it's a good spot for all of those people. So if you are betting McCaffrey, I do like the rushing plus receiving yards or just the receiving yards. So that's kind of where the Pickett world's on.
Yeah, I actually like receptions too. It's not an official play for me right now, but that is one that's probably, I guess, on my list of top 5. I think receptions is a pretty interesting look. but yeah, I mean, there's no surprise here. If you made me guess who the number one most bet player would be, it would have definitely been Christian here. Somebody said Sam, I believe, said he's boosted to plus 100 on DraftKings too for to
So
score.
it
So
is a
if he
use
hits
check
a
touchdown.
touchdown,
Oh, it's gonna be such a use tech trust. Oh my, you know, use check's gonna score on a screen pass, and Twitter's gonna be like, "What the fuck? That's supposed to be a Christian." Like, it's gonna be great. I am gonna dabble in that.
yeah, I love it.
So I'll let you take the second guy because you mentioned him. The second most popular player is Zion Williamson.
Yep, and yeah, it's such an I almost want to say obvious play. The Jazz give up the most points in the paint, and he's just been phenomenal. He's that guy. I'm so impressed with him. This time last year, I guess they were photoshopped, or maybe they were real, and he really just put work back into his body. But like this time last year, we're wondering if this guy's even going to play again. There's all these pictures and reports. He's 300 and some odd pounds, but
He James
he's just
Harden us.
phenomenal. Yeah, he really did. He is just so good. I do love it. An idiot, so I took CJ McCollum, but I definitely see what the public sees in
This is your
Zion here.
legacy play,
I like
CJ McCollum.
this. Yeah, that's right. CJ McCollum's my legacy play. It's an absolute fact. I definitely like Zion here. There's no real reason not to like it. He had 26, I think, last game battling foul trouble, and in I'll call it a blowout. It wasn't necessarily a blowout, but a starter sat the last 5-6 minutes. So big fan of that prop.
Yeah, I agree. This is the last one is Geno Smith. So people are taking his anytime touchdown. Once again, even for Geno Smith, most bet. People love betting touchdowns. And then
Interesting.
there
Yeah.
is a lot of love on his yards, but it's kind of split. So what I'm looking at is it seemed like people are either on the under or they're on the all overs for passing yards. Because I know you and I both gave his under and passing yards a look against this tough defense, but
Yeah.
I guess it's a little mixed bag of nuts. But I do think it's nice to see that people are mostly taking the alt lines because I do think it's a tougher matchup for them. We mentioned game script a million times. If they do get down, they're not afraid to run it. I mean, to throw it. Kenneth Walker, believe, is playing tonight, so that could
So,
help. That could help, limit his passing production if they decide to feed him. But Kenneth Walker, I'm not sure if he's good yet or not. He was the best running back in the league for 3 weeks, and then he looked like Trent Richardson for 3 weeks. So, I mean, I get running backs are all about blocking, but there's certain gaps he just missed. He ran backwards for 14 yards. Like,
don't remind me of
just
that.
kind
I
of
was
like
actually gonna bring
mental
that up.
mistakes he made. So I don't know if he's really great yet. I mean, it's his first year. Well, like you can't really say anything one way or the other, but he's definitely got the talent and the physical attributes. Do you have any thoughts on Geno Smith's passing yards?
Uh, we talk about it fairly frequently. It's one of those things like line opened here, it's here now. So I'm a little bit more hesitant and I guess gearing at is under passing yards is really intriguing. San Francisco jumped out ahead in I believe week 2 against this team against the Seahawks, sorry, and that forced them to pass pretty much all the whole second half. You still finished with 197 passing yards. This defense is just phenomenal. It's going to be really hard to gather 240 passing yards. It's certainly not impossible, but it's going to be very, very difficult to get 240 passing yards against this team. So I do lean under there as a guy that bets almost all overs. That's a pretty uncomfortable thing for me to say, but it's hard to like the over. He had 24 completions in week 2 for 197 yards against this incredible defense. So despite game script, if you want to get into that, it doesn't really seem like it'll matter just because San Fran's defense is just that good.
And then we got a text from JD saying that if you want to share his look of 2 touchdown scores of Kenneth Walker and Christian McCaffrey, which is interesting. He went with McCaffrey, not Juszczyk, but it is
Yeah,
plus 6,000, I believe. Yes, for them to each
yeah.
score twice. If you know JD loves running 2 touchdown scorer plays. I really wish he went with Juszczyk over McCaffrey, but I guess I can't hate it. He's going to go with the guy that gets slightly more touches than Juszczyk, but I do think it's a look because, as we mentioned, both these teams' passing games have been kind of suspect. So I wouldn't be surprised if the running game or the screen game goes positively for both teams.
Yeah, 49-1 on FanDuel. So yeah, that 60-1 is looking pretty good on Barstool right there. So yeah, he asked us to share Kenneth Walker to score twice, Christian McCaffrey to score twice. Those lottos are so fun, especially if you can get a quick score from each of them. That makes that game so fun. Makes quite a sweat. And the 43.5 over under tonight is pretty respectable. I mean, there should be some offense in this game. So definitely worth a look.
Yeah, and then to end on this, do you want to just share your plays? I'll share my plays. You sign us out, and we take a nap.
I don't get that now, but yeah, that sounds great. We'll start on the hardwood. Same game, my legacy play. I went CJ McCollum over 18.5 points on FanDuel at -122. It was -125 during the show at one point. I'm not exactly sure where that is at now. I would take it at 19.5 if it's close to plus odds. And then I took Laurie Markkinen over 21.5 points, -115 on FanDuel. Looking ahead, I don't have any NFL plays for tonight as of now. But on Saturday, I took Donovan Peoples-Jones over 49.5 receiving yards at -115 on DraftKings. Then I took Justin Fields over 69.5 rushing yards, -115 on DraftKings.
That's a beautiful card there. And then what'd you say on the hardwood first? Funny enough, skinny hardwood is actually what I'm called on Saturday nights at a club near here, but that's a whole different thing. But on the actual like hardwood of the NBA, I am on Brooke Lopez. I did an alt stinking parlay of under 14.5 points paired with under 6.5 rebounds. It is plus 105 on DraftKings. You can wait for FanDuel to open alt lines. I don't know if you'll get the same odds as you get there. I think that may be a little bit worse. They also won't open until 5 minutes into the game. And and then for tonight, Thursday Night Football, I'm on Kyle Juszczyk, MVP Juszczyk, huge stick, whatever you want to call him. I'm on his over 7.5 receiving yards. I think he gets 2 targets, which we're seeing from him, and I do think he gets at least 110 yards. I don't even know. But those are the 2 plays I'm at. I gave insight that I'm looking at Mark Andrews or Miles Sanders over on Sunday and Saturday, but I have not locked anything in yet. And then Ryan, do you want to sign us out?
Yeah, that'll conclude yet another edition of Ryan and Brian Talk Sports. We are now brought to you by Props.cash, which thanks to Tone Stamp, I'm now aware that in the top left on our stream, you can get a code, which is GoldBoys25. And if you use that code for Props.cash, you will get 25% off your first month. As far as Pickett, we also have a code, which is just Gold Boys. You'll get either $3 or $100 signing up if you use that code. So thank you for Props.cash, and thank you to Pickett for sponsoring us. And we appreciate everybody that tuned in, watched, and participated in the chats.
And if you're watching this and you see Pickett's tweet about Pickett Wrapped, retweet it so I don't get fired. That'd be cool. So yeah, we appreciate you guys all for signing in. We hope we get the subs from Ryan's Maxwell Lock of the Legacy of CJ McCollum. So we'll see you guys all next week. Actually, probably we'll see you next week, right? It's not the holidays yet.
Yeah, I think so.
15, yeah, my family doesn't even, they don't even enjoy hanging out with me, so I'm all good either way. So we'll see you guys next week.
Good. All right, thanks guys.